you start really understanding like what really matters and what doesn't. And making music, most of the time, what matters mostly is just to have fun.
They're known as the Lebanese Coldplay. Their shows are electrifying. Their songs are punchy and heartfelt. They've tackled themes from loneliness and the COVID-19 pandemic to heritage and a deep love of land. This is Adonis, a Lebanese indie pop band established in 2011 by vocalist Anthony Khoury, who we're speaking to today. Welcome to Tarab, a podcast from the National in Abu Dhabi that explores the Middle East dynamic and evolving music scene through interviews with some of the region's most compelling artists. I'm your host, Saeed Saeed, and in this episode, I speak to Anthony Khoury. He talks about the band's evolution and the emotional core of their seventh album, a project shaped around solitude, self-reflection, and letting go. Anthony, so great to have you here. Congratulations on the band's new album with Yan. I believe this is the seventh album now? Or like how many albums? Like 5? It's been a while. It's been a lot.
It's been a lot. It's actually our 7th.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm happy to be with you, Saeed. Happy to be speaking to you as always. This is indeed our 7th album with Yan. And yeah, we're excited it's finally out because it's been like a long way to basically to get here, to get to finally release it.
The album just came out like 4 or 5 days ago, so I had some time to listen to it. And my immediate impressions was that With Jan feels to me like a real shift. It's very textured. You're playing with different sonics. It's fluid. It felt like you were letting go of certain songwriting structures and you're leaning into mood more. I mean, was that something that you guys were thinking about? Or was it just a natural process, perhaps?
I think there's definitely a part of it that's natural, because I think that with experience, with many years of doing this, you start really knowing what's essential and what's not for you to be able to express an idea, a vision, a mood. And then you learn to hold on to that essential and let go of everything else. So as a result, the song sounds much like simpler, while it actually might have taken a longer time to get there. But there's also an intention with this album, I think, to give more space to the whole theme of the album and less space to the individual songs to express themselves. Meaning that if a decision regarding a certain song was to be taken or a choice was to be made, we always chose it based on what served the storytelling of the album better rather than what served this individual song itself. And this is something new to us, to conceive an album from day one, know where we're going, and then just execute everything inside that broader vision.
Do you view the album with Yan as a concept album of sorts?
It is very much. I mean, obviously there is space inside it to meander a bit left and right, but it is very much headed along a very specific trajectory. The album was drawn like a journey of some kind, a road trip or an excursion of a single person that leaves like a town maybe or a place where they are living in a community of more people and then heads towards solitude, towards nature, towards being all by themselves and being very introspective. This is how we designed the whole album and the progression of the songs along this journey.
And I guess this concept, were you a key driving force in terms of having that plot, or was that something that the band done together?
Actually, it started from one song. Which is called Tariq Saria, which is now the last or before to last song on the album. but it's really like the closing of the album thematically. So we actually started with this song, which basically summarizes this journey, because the song basically talks about someone who's constantly fluctuating between comparing themselves to others and society, saying how, for example, their friends are getting married and having kids and building houses on the hill, and then looking at their own self as in being very alone and down in the valley and having this posing POV situation. So from the essence of this song, we basically went backwards into writing the different key moments of that journey. So it started from self-reflection, because the song is a very personal one. That's about my own life at the moment, or at least an aspect of it. And then as a band, obviously, we took that general theme and we like dissected it and made it into eventually an album.
So, I mean, how does that work? Because in terms of like the band, I mean, Adonis spends a lot of time in terms of almost like craftsmen. You spent a lot of time in getting the right sonics. I mean, I think every hook that you do as a band is very deliberate. Now, because you have this concept, this plot, and you're basically building the music around it, was it tough to find that natural balance? Was there cases where you feel that you're trying to fit in a lyric in a melody that just didn't fit? And then did that mean you have to change the melody around, or does the lyrics take precedent? Because it's a story you're trying to tell after all.
To be honest, there's a lot of back and forth, but you've summarized a situation which we've been faced with many times. And it's always a question of balancing things out and maybe trying to find ways around a certain lyric that doesn't click with a certain melody, or a certain mood that doesn't click with a certain arrangement choice. So, I mean, yeah, it's like any work of art, anything you do, really, like a piece of writing, you really just have to keep taking things in and out until you feel that you've reached this like place where you can't really add anything and you can't really remove anything, and it just works.
Let's talk about a couple more of these, a couple more of the songs here. You opened the album with Jaksirni. And which I think, again, considering that it's a plot-driven story, it does set the scene, right? It has this melancholia. But at the same time, it has this kind of freeing feeling. It doesn't bog you down in desperation. It hangs around, but it just feels that, to me, that it's quite airy. And when you're doing an album, as I said, very conceptual, the opening track is probably one of the most important in terms of getting the message and the sonic message across. Tell us a little bit about that one. Did that song feel like a breakthrough for you when you placed it together in the studio?
Yes. So basically, I can't speak about Externally without speaking about the song after it, which is Widyan, which is the title track of the album. Obviously, it would have made sense for Widyan to open the album because it starts by describing details in nature, the flower, the star in the sky, etc., and then opens up to the whole scenery of the valleys. It's the song that describes how we got there. It's like the song that speaks about the emancipation of the character, if you want to call him a protagonist, as they decide that they're done with this situation they're in, this relationship they're in, and want to just find their, as you said, their voice, their freedom, and then just kicks a foot down and walks out the door. So this is the purpose of Externally in that album. It's that kind of feel-good song on its own, but it's also, if you want, the song that sets the situation for the album. We're going out of this into, self-exploration.
That self-exploration can also be playful and a bit surreal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, let's talk about a song called Nancy. Nancy is a playful song. It has this almost like an offbeat kind of funky groove. I'm like, and that could be, it's like, I'm going to hold on. Is Adonis doing their own version of Franz Ferdinand here? Like, It has this kind of vibe. And again, that's perhaps a side that perhaps your fans haven't seen, and which will probably sound amazing live when you take it on the road. I mean, was that like tell us a little bit about Nancy, because that's something that I think is it's very notable in this album.
So basically, Nancy has the influence or the touch of the producer behind most of the songs on the album, which is a brilliant, out of this world Jordanian producer called Amr Shomali, who we started working with only a couple of years ago. And we went to initially just to do one song with and ended up doing the whole album with. So that Franz Ferdinand kind of vibe you were speaking about is mostly basically him and our bassist Gio really getting along in terms of their own influences and just bringing this into the Adonis universe. So Nancy is a dancey song about not liking to dance, basically. Like that's what the lyrics are about. It's about like someone that really doesn't have a groove or doesn't know how to like properly just move or dance, but they're in a situation where they have to. And they keep getting themselves somehow in a situation where they have to dance. And like we try to translate a bit this playfulness of the lyrics into the music. And it's personally one of my favorites.
And that's the thing, that sense of playfulness. Yes, I mean, I think on a superficial level, it sounds like that, like it's playful and whatever, playful and fun. But for me, I feel just generally, and I alluded to this in the first question, I feel that Adonis never sounded as free and as creative, essentially, as Inwidian. And 7 albums in, that's an amazing effort. I mean, because many groups after 7 albums, especially groups within the scene, there's not many Arab bands from the indie scene that have lasted 7 albums. So this sense of freedom, was it the only way for the band to keep going?
I mean, definitely. We've always been very doing things on our own pace in our own way. And I think this continues to be the reason why we get along so well and we vibe so well and we just keep doing music together, despite many reasons, sometimes not to. So yeah, I mean, and then like I was mentioning earlier, like also with the experience, with the many years of doing this, you start really understanding like what really matters and what doesn't. And making music, most of the time, what matters mostly is just to have fun. And this we forget sometimes when we're like starting to discover what it means to like put up a show or to be recognized or etc. You start taking yourself more seriously than you should. So now we're all right, guys, this is just another day at school. Let's just play, kind of vibe.
But I would say the school that Adonis is enrolled in is probably one of the most difficult and one of the most rewarding and one of the most difficult. And by that, I'm talking about the music scene in Lebanon, which is
Yeah.
rich, it's vibrant, it's creative, but at the same time, the infrastructure perhaps is not there. As well as that, of
Oh no.
course, as well as that, the social situation, the economic situation. How tough was it for the decade just to navigate, all that and still release important albums, still write songs? Just that. I mean, has that interesting combustible atmosphere in Lebanon, has that been a source of inspiration mostly, or has it been also a source of the biggest challenges that Adonis had to face and overcome?
I think with Yan is us coming out like dark and like difficult place, I would say. Although the album was being made during the last war on Palestine and on Lebanon more specifically, but I think the intention behind it was a bit very much in tune with our state of minds while we were making the album. Like as isolated as our character in Widyan seems to be, or as much as he longs to be completely isolated and like really much in his head, this was us while making this album. I mean, we could not have done it any other way. And honestly, this freedom you talk about and that I'm happy you sense in some of the songs is also a like very logistical, geographical one for us because in this one particularly, we were like all over doing it. I mean, I was in Amman, I was in Paris. The band members were each in their own corner of the world, coming in, going out. So in a sense, it definitely felt like for the first time we were not really immersed in the context of Lebanon. And maybe the album does not directly, for the first time, respond to a specific situation in Lebanon. I mean, obviously, we were devastated during the war and we were indirectly affected, but the music was like elsewhere. It didn't sit with us in this very dark place. And I think it's a result of training, of like many hits we took over, as you say, the past decade. This time, we're like, okay, we're going to keep doing music, but we're just going to try to create it outside of this bubble.
I wonder, do you think that is also that going that direction of just writing music, perhaps that's not directly related to what's happening in your personal lives and in Lebanon, could be the reaction to the writing process of 2021 album? That record was heavy. That was COVID time. Lebanon was, had like many places, the music scene was shut down, and that was a very difficult time.
And we had the port explosion in Beirut also on top of that.
That's right.
In 2020.
Do you feel like, in a way, just this album was a way to just release yourself from just writing?
Probably it was. Probably now that you say it, and that's a really nice way to put it, it probably was the case. Probably was the case because we would have ended up like honestly repeating ourselves if we were just gonna go on and on about, unfortunately, like the seemingly endless torment of our country, of our region.
But also at the same time, though, these songs do play an important role, right? I mean, do you feel that your generation of artists from Lebanon who grew up in this turbulent time is in a way writing your own piece of history, your own draft of history in terms of telling Lebanon's story?
Definitely. I mean, for us, for example, on this album, definitely the song Abtal, which like speaks about basically the unspoken heroes of war or of turbulent times. Because in Lebanon specifically, it was a very intense rupture between towns and areas of maybe the same city that were being bombarded and other parts of town that were not so much directly affected or directly hit or directly targeted. So what ends up happening is that socially, you start like seeing certain groups of people react in a way you would not see usually, because usually you're so taken by the strengths of the moment and the sadness of the moment and the tragedy of the moment that you can't really take a proper look around and see how people react or operate in wars. For me personally, when I was in Beirut during that phase, I was in an area of Beirut that was not directly targeted, but whose population and whose entire structure was obviously mobilized to support the areas that were targeted. And I mean by that, our doctors and journalists and teachers and even pilots who kept operating flights despite bombardments near the airport. So Abtal was a song dedicated, in addition, of course, to soldiers and servicemen and people fighting on the fronts. It was also dedicated to people like me, but who were like still pursuing their duties and responsibilities despite the danger. It's a very specific song about a very specific situation, about a very specific kind of war, atrocious, obviously, kind of war.
For a final question, Anthony, is that if Widyan in Arabic is translated to a valley, a kind of valley, then it invites us to think of this valley as a metaphor for reflection, maybe loss, maybe some things we've gained and things we've lost as we go past the valley. This is a lot of the time that's the metaphor when we think about valleys. So with this album out, with Adonis 10 years in or more, right? What do you think as a band that you've gained and perhaps something that you've lost?
Now? Or like in general, like with this album, you
mean? No, with this album and where you are right now as a well-established and acclaimed group from Lebanon.
I mean, we've gained, I mean, so much purpose, I would say, most of all, for me at least. I speak for myself, obviously. But for me, this is something I was always looking for before moving to music, because I wasn't raised and trained to be a musician. Like I was headed a different path in life. I think music, mostly what I gained from it and what I think I will keep gaining from it for a very long time is like purpose. Like I feel like I have a place and a voice. What's lost with music, I would like nothing is lost, obviously. I mean, you do what you love, you're making art for a living. This is fantastic. Maybe I would say what's lost at certain points because of our specific situation in our region in Lebanon is maybe a sense of security or stability because our kind of work is the least fundamental kind of work for like a society to keep functioning. And sometimes we are at like first degree survival mode in Lebanon more often than we would like to. So in these situations, I feel like stuck in a way. I think this is the only thing that I lost, but it's temporary. And hopefully, the immense hope that I have in my country and my region and the goodness of people in general, I think eventually there will be less and less to lose and much more and more to gain.
Anthony, thank you very much for joining us here. Anthony, thank you very much, brother, my friend. I appreciate you in the
Thank you,
band.
Saeed.
And we'll see
Thank
you on the
appreciate
road.
You too. Thank you.
حبيتك على حالك ما كان يكفي شكلها الكنيسة إذا قريبي ما بتشفي عبالك روح لبعيد